Hey there, fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. I'm Mark Francis, once again, the host for today. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had an episode. Looking forward to getting back at you today. And we have a couple smiling faces with us in the booth. It's been a while since you've been sitting here, Miss Alicia Battaglia. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
I don't know if you've ever been. Have you been on a fellowship family episode?
No, I have not. This
Welcome.
is my first fellowship family, so thank you.
Formerly of Sermon Spotlight fame, sitting in your famous seat right there.
Well, since retired.
Going through the season of COVID and Zoom Light, do you have anything of spring flowers that you'd like to share with us? Because remember those days of we're going back in the dark ages of podcasting, of where we still did these episodes for Sermon Spotlight during COVID, where we weren't meeting in person.
Yeah, it was like...
Do you have gardens in your house now?
I have. Well, I've been... I worked on my regular garden with my vegetables. I've got some vegetables and flowers, and then I've been weeding around the house and just doing all of the spring stuff, so that makes my heart happy.
It's perfect.
I love it.
Yeah, coming off of apple blossom season as well. Well, we have also with us to my left, watching audience at home right, Mr. Brian Weir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You don't have a story of flowers or gardening,
no, I can relate to the weeds though. Got my fair share of those.
I grow a lot of weeds. That's about all I can do.
Yeah.
Yes. And just share with us your role here at FBC.
Yeah, I'm director of children's ministry. I'm going on 2 years now. So yeah.
And Alicia, what's your connection with children's ministry?
Oh, wow. Well, so I've served in VBS for years, and I also teach the 4-year-olds over in preschool on Sunday mornings. And I love kids. I have been in some sort of form of education for, probably 30 years now. So, I love kids. They're precious.
They're special.
They have my heart.
The volunteers that go in, week out, man, I don't think enough can be said about them. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and just patience and energy and enthusiasm. Yeah. You guys know more than I do, because I'm not down there. So tell us a little bit about the children's ministry, Brian, because we have a purpose of why we're here today. We're going to talk about VBS. Sure. But before we dive into that, give us kind of the heart of children's ministry.
Sure. So I think it starts with partnering with parents. That's a phrase that we throw around a lot, that our mission is to partner with parents. Yes, we teach them on Sundays or sometimes Wednesday evenings, depending on the ministries that we offer. But it's the parents' primary job to disciple their kids. So our hope is that we can provide some biblical teaching on a Sunday morning, and something that those parents can then continue teaching them at home as they're discipling and leading kids to Christ.
And we don't want you to tune this episode out if you don't have kids in this age group. I think the heart and the tone of this conversation today is that you have a role to play as a member of this church, as a body of believers, to assist in that process. And it's not the church's staff's job to simply partner with parents, and it's not solely the parents' job to disciple their kids. They are the primary disciple makers, not the only. So, Alicia, you don't have kids anymore in elementary school age, but yet you have a heart for that. What gives you that heart, and how do you partner with parents in that capacity?
Well, it's a very big impact, not just on the immediate family, but it flows out. There's a ripple effect. And so what we're focusing on currently, as far as our church-wide event, is this VBS that we're going to be having in June. And it is a huge opportunity for our church as a whole to use this as an outreach to our community. And so it's not just isolated for those who have young children who are elementary age. No, this involves our whole church body to jump in and participate, whether it's finding a way that you can serve, just to pray, and to help provide supplies. There's just so many ways that people can be involved. And as far as the outreach aspect of it is, it doesn't matter if you have kids or not. You can invite someone to participate in VBS, if it's a coworker or maybe someone that you do sports with, or whatever
in the
your
neighborhood or
your
whatever it
neighbors,
might be.
whatever your
Yeah.
hobby is, the people that you rub shoulders with, if they have a child who, or know someone who has a child that is in that elementary age, that's an opportunity for you to reach out and extend that invitation to participate.
And it goes beyond just inviting to in the community. We're also partnering with parents of the children who do attend here. Right. So there's a combination impact of this, looking internally at our own kids and our own families and how can we disciple them. But then, like you're saying, Alicia, looking out of our community, we do this every year. So this Vacation Bible School is not new. So why are we putting not added emphasis, but just a different take on it this year? Like how can we as a church look at it slightly differently that allows it to not necessarily just be a children's ministry event?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. When you look at our church's mission statement, and we are to deploy dependent disciples, right? So each one of us has a role in discipling someone else. And so, yeah, it could be someone that we attend church with, but it could be somebody outside of this church. So I think it's an opportunity for, like you said, if it's a neighbor, coworker, whoever who has children, it's an opportunity for the adults of this church to find someone that they can disciple. And one way would be just to invite your kids to VBS, to plant that seed. You might work with someone who's never even been in a church before. And so to invite them to come on a Sunday morning may be something that they wouldn't consider. But inviting them to have their kids come during the week, that might be something that they would consider. And that could be a first step in possibly getting the whole family to attend maybe.
That's true. And those invitations come based on a relationship.
Absolutely.
So you can go invite some person you don't know at all off the street.
Right.
And go hand out flyers on the sidewalk at an Apple Blossom Festival or outside of a Chick-fil-A or wherever it might be. And it might reach one or two people.
Right.
But the impact that a relationship can do to draw somebody out and have that aspect of, I know you, you know me, and here's what I'd love for you to partner with me and come participate to serve or come participate with your children. There's the next level to what an invitation looks like. Sure. From a relationship.
Sure.
And so from there, let's dive into like what that can really look like for our church body. We're all three of us here are looking at a flyer we're going to call a resource tool that is in the foyer of our church that you can grab. And we want to highlight this in this conversation right now and look at it in 3 different phases. You can think of it where, what can I do as a church member between now and VBS, leading up to it? What can then I do in phase 2 of during the week to engage with this partner with parents and with this ministering to children? And then the third phase is what happens afterwards? What can we do after the Vacation Bible School week is over? And so let's talk about that and break it down. First of all, give us the dates so we know what we're leading up to. So Vacation Bible School is when?
Yes, June 24th through the 28th.
So it's the last full week of June,
correct.
Monday through Friday. And
9 a.m. to noon.
9 a.m. to noon, and that's what we're gearing up towards. And there's a whole team of people who are already signed up and participating. And Brian, you have meetings upon meetings leading up to it, right?
Just came from one to join this.
There you go. Yeah, and it's we all have meetings. Alicia, you're not on staff, so you get out of them sometimes. Yes. But even this morning in a staff meeting, Mark Carey made an interesting point. And it kind of segues into this, what can we do leading up to VBS conversation? But talking about hospitality, and on any given Sunday, how we can find people that we think we know, but we might not know. And you might not know their name. It might be awkward. It might be embarrassing to say, hey, remind me, how do I know you and what's your name? And you know what? That's still an icebreaker. It's still an opportunity for you to engage with somebody. And he said, what's even more meaningful is if you see a family and there's kids there, if you, the adult, kind of kneel down and get on the kid's eyeball level and just talk to them and say, hey, tell me your name. My name's Mark. That Mark Carey was encouraging our staff in that way. And I think he's also implying that he's encouraging our entire body to engage with others in that way during a corporate gathering weekend. And so there's that relationship component, and engaging with a child is meaningful to the kid. It's also meaningful to the parent of like, wow, you care enough about me and my family to talk to kids. So that was a neat, relevant encouragement that came out of a conversation in our staff meeting today. So Alicia, I know you had a lot of emphasis here with this tool that we're looking at. You've mentioned a few of these already, but let's dive in to dig a little deeper. What can we do as a church leading up to VBS between now and that last week of June?
So leading up to VBS is we should, number one, do the inviting. We as FBCers should be the ones who are out there inviting people. Do we know someone with elementary children, a neighbor, a coworker, someone with whom we share a hobby or sport with? Those are the people that we can be looking for of, oh, I can invite them. And why should I extend the VBS invitation to families that are unchurched? So remember that VBS is, from an outreach perspective, VBS is an invitational with an external goal to reach people who are unchurched. So why should we extend this invitation to people who are unchurched? Because we want to share the good news of Jesus with them.
Because God has that heart.
Yeah.
Like
He has
it seems logical, but I think
yes.
that is probably the most pertinent question on this resource guide.
Right.
Why should I be doing this? Well, because we care about other people.
And it's a first step to building a bridge, because I don't know if you guys remember, but it's been a while, but we did that building bridges emphasis where we live and work and play, and how to build bridges with those people. And so this is an opportunity to build a bridge with someone. So and then too, how do we invite somebody? How do we know who to invite?
Yeah.
Well, number one, pray and ask the Lord for the opportunity to invite someone. And then be praying for that person, the person that the Lord brings to mind. And then talk to that person, engage with them with your kindness and your friendship. And I think about back when we were in Acts, and there's such a great model of what that looks like. This is in Acts 2, and let's see, starting in verse 44. And all who believed were together and had things in common. So finding those things in common is important. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need, and day by day attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes and receiving their food with gladness and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. So it's just with a glad and generous heart that you're inviting people into your life and extending that hospitality that you had previously mentioned, and just showing kindness, that you care about them, that you want to hear their story and learn about who they are, not just, oh, I want to invite you to my church,
Right.
to this event. You want to value them as a person made in God's image, and just use that as an opportunity to build that bridge.
And you're caring about their family
Exactly.
and their kids, because we're talking about kind of an adult to adult conversation here of encouraging the parents to say, hey, this would be a great opportunity for your kids to attend. It's
Right.
gonna be fun. B, there's gonna be other kids around that they might know, and C, you might learn a little bit something about God, and what do you know about God?
Right.
And
Exactly.
there's this opportunity there it's a hook. It's an opportunity, and why else are we gonna do a big event like this?
Right.
Is it just because we like to work our tails off, for a whole week long? Why else do we do Follow the Star as a church, and have tons of our resources and funds and people and things to go into it? I mean, there's a lot that goes into this week. So how the church can participate is through that invitation atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'll add to something that came up in our staff meeting this morning. Like you said, John had mentioned going to another church recently. And not that we want anyone to go to a different church, but if you go, we get comfortable in our own church, right? But if you are a visitor at another church, it can be awkward, right? Or inviting someone to a church, it's not something that somebody is always up for doing. But inviting your kids to VBS, that's much more, something that someone's more interested in doing.
It's an easier not segue is not the right word, but
Well, it's not quite the formal environment
Right.
where
Yeah.
you would feel more intimidated of walking into a totally different worship service that what you would be normally used to or whatever, because this is a separate event. But the purpose of it is to point the children and all those who are involved to the gospel. And that is the best gift that we can give anybody
Yeah.
is the gospel. And that's the heart of Jesus.
So if they say yes, and if they say, sure, I'll have my kids participate in that, now what are your next steps? I mean, because first of all, if you're doing the invitation, what's your role in VBS? Not that you have to have a specific role, but is there something that you can walk alongside with that person to help be a driver of their kids, or maybe meet them for lunch afterwards, or maybe meet them for coffee? Like, so what are some of the things that we can do during the week?
Yeah.
While we have this kind of heart of invitation of people, maybe our friends are coming during the week.
Well, if they first say, oh yeah, that week could work. Yeah, I'd love for my kids to go. One of the most practical things that we can do is take them to the church website.
Help them sign up, right?
Yeah, get them registered, and then the website has all the information. Any questions that they have are probably going to be answered there, and if not, you can help find those answers. And so pointing to the website would be huge. And then, like you mentioned, if maybe one of the parents is working and transportation is an issue, offer to help. I can pick up whatever it is that family may need. You can step in and help in that way. And then as we're waiting, and because still we've got over a month before June happens, if you're inviting somebody this coming weekend, you still want to keep that relationship open with them and continue extending kindness, and then also praying for them, and just praying that the Lord is preparing the child's heart and also the parent's heart, because the kids are going to come home with lots of stories and information, and they're going to want to talk about what they learned.
Right.
And so for the parents for the Lord to prepare the parent's heart to be able to engage in the kids with conversation is important.
Give us a brief outline for the week, Brian, because I think that might be helpful for us as we're preparing for this week of how we can engage with our friends, with our neighbors, those who we invite during that week. What are the kids going to be doing Monday through Friday?
Yeah, so there's a rotation of events. There's classroom teaching. There's a missions time that they'll receive a snack. There's a game time. There's a craft time. And so kids will rotate throughout the church in a music time, and they'll spend about 25 to 30 minutes in each one of those stations. They'll start out all together, worshiping together with a little skit and some music, and then they'll go to their various sections and rotate throughout the church and be picked up there at the end. So, time flies. Those 3 hours go by fast because those kids are constantly moving, constantly engaged, constantly moving on to a different thing. So it's a good time.
And then what's the overall theme of the week? And
so
what does that look like from a kid perspective, and then from adult perspective, what do we need to know about what's happening there?
So the publisher of the VBS curriculum are using is Lifeway, and their theme this year is called Breaker Rock Beach. And so the theme there is that God is the rock, right? He is who we should build our foundation in a world of shifting sand. So this image of this beach, this fictional beach, that there's this rock, filled with sand around it. The sand comes and goes and moves with the waves as they come and go, but the rock, it stays still. So everything's pointing to, God is our rock.
And is there a certain day of the week where you're like, okay, we're going to share Christ with the kids, the quote-unquote gospel presentation?
Right.
What can we look out for that? What should we know?
Yeah, that's typically midweek around Wednesday. We start off with the whole idea that God is creator and that we all sin and that there's this need for a savior, right? So you build up to that, and then around Wednesday is when you actually start sharing the gospel with them, and by the end of the week it's hoping that they've received that message, understand that message, and then for some who've already received that message, having that desire to want to share that with others.
So even the kids, they it's cool that that's on a Wednesday. Right. That allows the kids to process what they've been hearing, and then have the opportunity to even share with friends of theirs around them, and still be in a environment that makes that feel where they can feel comfortable with that.
And it also opens up an opportunity for more conversation, and for the FBCer who's invited somebody, and as you're engaging with the child and the parents and maybe other siblings, the focus of the conversation can be about the gospel. And so that can be a segue of asking them more personal questions. Well, what do you believe this? What do you think about what you heard today? And just kind of digging deeper and really exploring that with them and walking alongside them in that process as they're, thinking about what they heard and what does this mean for my life? And it's not just for the child, for the parents and the siblings as well. So it's a great way to engage in conversation that is, the topic's already chosen for you, like this is what you learned about today, and let's talk about it.
Yeah. And things go home with the kids every day.
Sure.
So as a parent or as somebody who is the driver of a car or following up with lunch afterwards, you have some tools and some content to at least engage the kids with those conversations and engage the parents with those conversations as well.
And the songs are very catchy, and they're always teaching some biblical truth that, once you hear it once or twice, it's in your head, and,
Trust me, it gets in your head real quick. And there's, I think, dozens of songs stuck in my head over the years.
Right. They're not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. So this is a third and final phase that sometimes we forget and neglect. What happens afterwards? What happens after the week? We have a lot of momentum and we get excited about the week and pray for it and maybe send out some invitations and talk to people. But then Friday afternoon happens and it's done.
Yeah.
What have we done wrong in the past that we can maybe correct this go around with some just encouragement right now?
Well, I think it's really important for those of us who have participated and invited people to continue to follow up with them. Don't just leave the relationship high and dry at the end of the week. Like, carry on through the summer and continue that relationship because, like I mentioned before, people, they want to be known. And so understand where they're at in their spiritual journey and come alongside and help encourage them in where they're at. And then also it's an opportunity for us to continue to invite them as our church gathers, as we have our Sunday morning gatherings or other special events. I know that with the children's ministry, there's going to be some special events coming up, and we can invite people to participate in that, where they're continuing to be exposed to church life and the truth of the gospel as well. So those are,
And I'll add to that and say that we love to hear stories of what God does. We don't always like to be the ones to share them. And so how can you prepare yourself to be open to see the moments of where God is working in the life of you and a parent or maybe children, and then capture that? Maybe make a mental note or write it down somewhere and remember what God did through the week. And don't just hide it, but share it. So this podcast experience could seem scary for some people, but trust me, when everyone who comes in this room is done, they're like, wow, that was easy and that was fun and that was encouraging. So there's moments where it is helpful to actually share those stories of what God has done in your life and what you've seen God do in other people's lives. That is a blessing to you, but encouragement to others. So look for those moments and be willing to share those stories and contact Brian, contact me, find anybody around and be like, hey, this is what I saw God do. Send an email, send a voicemail, and let us know, because I think you might think your story is insignificant, but it can have a huge impact to many people that you might not even think about. So that would be my encouragement as well as a follow-up. Brian, wrap this up, kind of summarize what, once again, why are we here today and thinking about Vacation Bible School, not as a one-off, but afterwards. Partnering with parents is a big key word, I know. Invitation is another key word. What would you want to encourage our body with as we prepare for this VBS season?
Yeah, I think you said it earlier. I mean, it's easy to say, well, I don't have elementary kids, so I'm not involved with VBS. But I agree. This is a church-wide event. I mean, we spend hundreds of hours. It takes hundreds of people. We have hundreds of kids. it is a lot. And so, we're doing this as the hands and feet of God. And so I think everyone has a role, whether it's you're serving on the snack team or the music team or games. But like we've talked about here, having that invitational opportunity, there are so many people outside of this church that are missing out. And we'd love to share this week with them. And yeah, I could go around and knock on doors and invite people, but people are more likely going to come is if they're invited by someone that they know, someone who's invested in them, someone who cares about them, that they have a relationship with. And so that's what we're asking you guys to do. If everyone out there, I'm sure everyone out there knows a family that has kids, right? It might not be you, but I'm sure you know someone, whether they live across the street, someone you work with. Be intentional. And that's our job.
Yeah.
And Paul, in 1 Corinthians 9, he talks about how he becomes all things to all people, that by all means that some might be saved. And in verse 23, he says, I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in its blessings. And that's what we're being called to do too. And we want to share in the blessings of the gospel. So that's the why.
It's awesome. I love it. Circling back to the why, again, the most important question out there. And for those of us that do attend FBC on a regular basis, and you're watching and listening, use those weekends, use those Saturday nights or Sunday mornings when you're here to practice introducing yourself to somebody and build relationships. It's, how scary would it be if you weren't in this building, but you're in this building and people are attending the same church service, attending the same church, and you might not know them. You can warm up your social skills of how to engage with other people here while you're at Fellowship Bible Church, to then prepare you to go out and be deployed into the world to then engage somebody else who you think might not know the Lord. And so there's this constant Rhythms of Grace that is a book that I love to read, because we gather and then we scatter, and we gather and we scatter, and there's a rhythm that goes on with that. Well, thank you guys for being here and being a part of the conversation. I'm excited to see what God does with this. And in the show notes, we will have a couple of resources for you. This resource tool that we're referring to here on this episode will be there as a PDF for you. We'll have the link to the VBS site where you can send people and go to register. And just for the fun of it, we'll also have the link to the Building Bridges location, where we've had plenty of tools and resources from a focus that we did a couple years ago with this heart of invitation. So it's exciting. We'll see what God does. And please feel free to share this episode and this podcast with others who don't know about it. Remember, we have the Sermon Spotlight. We have the Global Church podcast as well. And check those out if you can. Brian, Alicia, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching and listening and participating. And until we chat again, let's let Christ be the focus of our lives each and every day.